school. She bought us one suitcase. The bed sheets that Dad was using in hospital, they cut them in two so that we could have one more pair out of them because we were two. Hello, you're welcome once again to my YouTube channel. My name is Beatrice Chimpi and I'm glad that you're here. To our new viewers, please consider subscribing, sharing, commenting on this video so that we may grow together. To the old viewers, you're welcome once again. This is a channel about marriage, motherhood, parenting, finance, career, beauty and fashion and everything around that. We are here to motivate, impact, inspire the world around us. You're most welcome. Today it's a continuation of my story I shared on the page last week about my career journey. And so in that story we stopped when I was in high school, and I just saw that I didn't share something small about my primary. When I lost my dad at that age, I think I was around P3 going to P4. We hit rock bottom. It was from up there to down because my mom wasn't working. She was a stay-at-home mom, completely depending on the husband. I was the firstborn, or I'm the firstborn, and so I was understanding everything that was going on. That was around third term. We had to go back to school. We didn't have school fees. The breadwinner had gone. I remember a miracle in that term. My mom is not here to testify. Sorry that we also had to lose her at some point, some 5 years ago. But my sister who follows me, that very time, mommy paid for me school fees, and there was no school fees to pay for her. We were going to Mengo Primary School. So my mom, I grew up, my mom teaching me to be a leader. She would leave me and delegate certain things at that age, yeah. So she sent me to the bursar's office to go and check how much balance my sister has. I wish she's here because she's the only person who knows truly that this thing, what I'm saying is true. Because my sister was really young. And when I reached the bursar's office, the bursar told me, Dorcas doesn't have any balance. The truth is, my mom hadn't paid money for my sister. It was third term. She hadn't. My younger brother had not yet even joined nursery. The other one was about 1 year old, the last born. But we were the only two in school and she had only paid for me. How on earth does she have her school balance zero? At that age, I knew the power of God. I stayed with that testimony in my heart up to now. So third term ends for primary 4, primary 3. So I had to go. There was no school fees to continue in a private school. By then, Mengo Primary School was not yet a government school. It was a private school. Buganda Road, Chintante were one of the schools for the high class. We were, I would say, well off. And so our dad chose that school. By then it was a very expensive school. So we didn't have tuition to continue with that primary. And so our friend, I call her my mom too, she's called Hajat Sematimba. She stood so close with my mom. And she told her, I remember these things because I was there. So to the parents out there, mind about what you say when your children are watching. Because I witnessed everything my mom was going through. And the friend of hers, I hold her so dearly. She told her right now, because my mom was 25 years old, she told her, you have to grow up. This is the time for you to grow up. Children for the abana abasirikale balina amasomero gye basobola basomeseza. So she encouraged her. They went to where they had to get the vacancies from. And she hoped that we would be given Ginger because it was much closer. But we were given Masindi that far. And it was the first time she was going to be away from her children that long. But she was a very brave woman. We didn't have anything. I remember the bed sheets that my dad used to use in the hospital. They are the ones that she cut into two, because somehow things got lost in the house. You know, the burial stuff got lost. We didn't have a lot. And that auntie of mine, who I call my mom, Hajat Sematimba, her children were going to a Muslim school and they were putting on a green uniform. And the school where we were going to go was putting on the same uniform. And she gave her uniforms for them, for the children, for Bira and Hajara's uniforms. And we had to use those green uniforms to go to this new school. She bought us one suitcase. The bed sheets that Dad was using in hospital, they cut them in two so that we could have one more pair out of them because we were two. I remember very vividly, she took us to Mbuya barracks. We set off. I remember everything. She said goodbye and she told us to trust God. When we reached there, the Bible says that grow your children in the ways that they should go, and when they grow up, they will never depart from them. What helped us in that long distance from our parents, from my mom, it was because of the Christian background that they had grown us in. I'd seen our dad teach us to pray, our mom teaching us to pray. So it's the weapon that we use. We used to wake up, pray, speak in our future. It was so distant. We were very poor. We had nothing. People had eats at school. They had everything they needed, the quencher. But we didn't lack per se. Physically we lacked, but spiritually we were very strong and we didn't care what others had. So that's briefly about the primary. To those who didn't watch the first video about the secondary, that was just something small about the primary. So reaching secondary, the results came back and I had to join university. But all along I wanted to be a medical worker, so I didn't know where to start from. You'll ask every student who does PCB math, then everyone aspires to go to Makerere University, to any university, to do medicine. But the points came out so not well to be able to enter the medical school direct. And so I had to go to Mulago paramedical training schools. How did I know about it? I didn't know anything about Mulago paramedical training schools, right now called Uganda Health Allied Management Institute of Health Sciences. But a friend of mine, the mom had gone through that tertiary institute as a nurse. So she told me to connect to a certain elder in our church, may her soul rest in peace, Mrs. Rashana. She was teaching nursing as a course unit there. So she wrote me a letter and they gave me a vacancy. The only vacancies that were there at that time were in orthopedic medicine. Me, all I wanted to do was enter and do a medical course. And I knew that was not going to be my end. I was going to use it as a stepping stone. I was not going to do orthopedic medicine just and stop there. So when I reached university, still it was a private vacancy. We couldn't get the government one because we hadn't even given it a choice. And so I got a private vacancy. I don't know how much then we were paying, around 960,000. God, that was a lot of money for my mom, a lot. But she trusted God, she believed God. Medical school, you have to sleep there, so she had to foot with also, how do they call it? Hostel fee, feeding fee. That's not part of that. It was a life struggle. How do I go through? Praying, trusting God. I had a friend of mine called Brenda. I stayed in hostel for one semester, and I told my mother, the first semester I used to stay home. The second semester I went to hostel. We couldn't afford 250,000 per semester. So I told my mom, my friend Brenda was doing dental, and so she was on government. I was always this, person who comes to mommy with advice, with things we can do to, to forge our way ahead. Because I knew I had little ones, followers that had to go to school. So I told mommy I could go and sleep with Brenda and we share a bed, and then we shall not have to pay this money for hostel. And I went and stayed with Brenda. We shared a bed with her for the longest of the course. We were serving in the same church in the worship team, and so we were like sisters. We slept on the same bed. She would get food from the kitchen. Because she was on government, we would share the food. We would read. She would encourage me. And so that's how I went through campus, not having to pay the hostel fee. And then after school, after that diploma, knowing that I wasn't going to stop on a diploma level, I think I worked for only 1 year or 6 months, and then I went back to school. I asked for a vacancy in Ishaka. They gave me a vacancy in medicine. That was around about the same time when I was intending to get married. And so I chose, that's a topic for another time, I chose a course which was more closer to the would-be family than the one that I intentionally had, because as I told you in the first video, my father really wanted me to be a doctor. And so when I finished the diploma at Mulago Paramedical, my mom, she was a go-getter. Maybe just a little testimony how I passed through the tuition. My mom would pay the tuition for the diploma in like 5 bits. At the final, one thing I remember so vividly, that when we're doing our finals, we do practicals in the hospital. We do it in groups. So we had group A, group B, group C. And so you had to have cleared tuition to finish. Just like we were overcoming all other hurdles, we were faced so many times with challenges, with situations that seemed like there's a wall and you can't go through. Before I give you this testimony, in my primary, after we joined Masindi Army Boarding, the next term they introduced uniforms. Remember the green uniforms we were taking, they were being given to us by a friend of my mom. So they introduced red uniforms. They removed free transport. And so you imagine the transport from Kampala to Masindi, and then you have to wake up one day and your daughter is on that door knocking, "Mommy, they have brought me home." They kept my sister, but they told me to go back for the red uniforms. That was the shortest uniform I had to take to school. Why? Because I saw my mom cry in our family a lot of times when she was faced with challenges. That was the lowest of my points, when I could see my mom crying because she didn't have help. Like, she felt like she was being defeated. But she would always confess that God is in control, God is going to do it, He's a way maker. And so she told me, with this okugwamu amaanyi nagamba nagula oluji ate ononye ki, like having thought that omanyi kati ekyo nkimaze kyeno tambageze ku ssomero, only for you to come back knocking, but to me uniform z'okusiibamu. We are no longer being in casual, but to me uniform ez'okusiibamu eza red. She felt like fainting. She didn't know where to get money. Across our home there was a granny who was staying there. She just told me, let me go to her. That lady gave her some money because she went crying. She was literally crying and she didn't have where to get money. And the little money she gave her, she went to Chiembe, got some meters and made one uniform for each, one for Dorcas, one for me, and they were red. But they were the shortest I'd ever had, because she didn't have money to buy a lot of meters to make 3 uniforms or to make even a longer uniform. She said, "Bit 12 years. When God gives us money, next time you'll take more uniforms." And I was this child who was always contented with what if my mom can give me books and pencils and pens, I wouldn't pressurize her for any other thing. That was it. If she can get me books and pencils, textbooks, she would invest in textbooks. The rest, it's hair, wasn't my business. So even coming to campus, I was faced with such a challenge one time when we were concluding or finishing our course of 3 years, and I was in group A, the one that's supposed to be doing that practicals first, and then time reaches and there's no money. I hadn't finished tuition, and so I wasn't allowed to sit. I called my mom home, "Mommy, ofunye sente zimalayo tuition." She was like, "I don't have money. I'm still looking for money, but I know God will make a way." I felt like, I can go to group B tomorrow. I call again the next day. I remember very well where I was. There was a wall. I was leaning on a wall, and I was like hoping Mommy would tell me I've cleared the tuition. I'm bringing the bank slip. She told me, "Bit sinafuna sente naye nzikiriza mukama agenda kutuwa sente." That time I felt like all the energy in my life had gone, because me, I'm not used to studying while going backwards. That is me. I do a course, I have to go through with it. No retakes, no any interruption, because if I hadn't done that practical, it meant that I wasn't going to finish the course, and I was going to finish the course next year, like the year ending, and for me that was too much. So the third day comes, and I asked Mommy again on the phone, "Have you got money?" In the morning she told me, "Bit sinafuna sent." Guys, that was when I felt like my world is ending right now, because the only chance I have is to do in group C in the morning. There's also an evening session. I prayed, I was on the wall, and I literally felt like I couldn't hold myself together. I fell down on the ground and I started crying. I switched off the phone because I didn't want my mom to hear me crying. And she told me I trust God. So around 11:30, I get a call from her, "Bit, I've finished paying the money." It was life-saving. And then I did my final practical in the afternoon. That's how God comes through for us, even when we trust Him. When there's a wall, when there's no way, that's why He's called a way maker. That's how I finished that course. So I finished the course. I didn't look for a job. My friend connected me to a job immediately, 6 months. I'll just jump a bit to when I joined the degree. So to go back, then that's when I decide the next year I want to go and do a degree. So I decide I was going to do medical imaging. My husband does radiography, and I had loved it so much. He's one of the best, and I loved the course. So if I didn't do medicine, I was going to do medical imaging, because I was going to get married and have a family. Then we didn't consider that it was important for me to have a course that is away. I had the admission for medicine I didn't do, and I decided to go for medical imaging. And so that is how I end up being a radiographer or a medical imaging technologist now. If you're out there and you're a student, you're growing up with a single mom, or not even a single mom, your parents are struggling to give you tuition, there's a God who provides. There's a God who knows our end from the beginning. He can come through for you. Just trust Him. Pray for His direction. There are those destiny helpers, like I told you. God is going to connect you to people who are going to help you hold your hand up until you succeed. If this video has been of a great importance and a blessing to you, please consider subscribing, sharing it to various platforms so that someone out there may be encouraged. Comment if you've ever gone through a situation like mine. How did you overcome? How did God use people around you to help you succeed? How did you manage? For any inquiries, you can go on my email, Balance It Ladies, and you can contact me for anything. Till next time, I've been Beatrice Chimpy. Bye.